All right, hi everybody. My name is Adam Reznechek. I am an upstream contributor for the Power platform, and I'm here to talk a little bit today about how OpenStack and OpenPOWER are working together to kind of create a really open, what we're calling an open data center revolution, right? Where we're bringing open hardware and open software together for the first time in a lot of these big scale-out data centers. So a lot of you are probably wondering, what is OpenPOWER? So OpenPOWER is a hardware ecosystem that's based on the Power architecture. For those of you who aren't familiar with Power, Power is originally started as an IBM architecture. It is designed for high scale, high density. It's really focused a lot on high power server workloads. It's used in HPC, enterprise spaces, and really branches out to give a lot of that power behind your workloads, for lack of a better term here. So OpenPOWER is a hardware ecosystem based on that architecture, where the entire stack, right, the hardware, the firmware, and the software that runs on the system design itself, is all open source and collaboratively designed as part of the project. And so it's really focused on kind of three primary tenets here, right? We've got what we call the open core. So this open core is what we do to enable users to create custom hardware, custom offerings as part of their deployments that they can customize to meet their exact needs. So whether that involves modifying the actual chip design itself, modifying the layout, the features of the board, the features of the system, you can go through and pretty much change anything you need to make your workloads run the best, to make your systems and your software and everything in your data center customizable to your needs. And that really ties into the second point here, right, of no black boxes. So this is a really truly open architecture, right? The hardware design, the system firmware, all of the software, the things that would be like binary blobs, for example, on other platforms, those are all open source. You can download them off GitHub, and it really gives users a lot of control over the platform. And it's really, again, like OpenStack, very community driven, right? We've got over 200 member companies that are part of the ecosystem. And it's really a platform designed by the users, for all the different individuals and companies involved. So you might be wondering, what do OpenStack and OpenPOWER really have in common, right? And what we're trying to drive here is that both communities are really committed to the same kind of four opens that they talked about in the keynotes this morning, right? Things like open collaboration, open design, open development processes. It allows you to get these hundreds of companies and thousands of individuals all across the globe together to work and really redefine the modern data center, right? Like re-architect how things are out there and how things are done to make those improvements they haven't been able to make in the past. And we really tie that all together as part of what is called an open ecosystem, right? So together with OpenStack, which we're all, I think, familiar with, and then Linux, which I imagine most of us are familiar with here, OpenPOWER works and creates this completely open ecosystem from top to bottom, where the whole stack, the underlying hardware design, the firmware, the operating system, your data center management tooling that you use for your deployments, every piece of it, all the design, the code, the documentation is publicly available, publicly auditable in such a way that if you as an end user have a question, you don't have to go and try and contact some mystery person at a company to figure it out. You can just go on GitHub and look at the reference architecture for the hardware. You can look at the design and all of these bits and pieces. And a lot of what we do in OpenPOWER is not just focused around the actual Power platform itself. It's also focused around innovating on these open standards, right? As we have a lot of our partners, people like Google and Rackspace and IBM that work in these upstream platforms, we work to bring these kind of open standards into our hyperscale clouds for supercomputing and scale-out cloud and all kinds of different workloads. So OpenPOWER really enables you to take that deeper level of integration with the system, because you can access the system in ways that you've never been able to before with things like OpenCAPI, for example, which is a high-speed interface for attaching things like accelerators, advanced memory devices, high-performance I/O for networking and storage, and allow them to basically share a contiguous memory space with the processor. So you can have the application directly touch the accelerator, for example, without the kernel getting involved at all. Or something like OpenBMC, right, where For those of you familiar with BMCs or baseboard management controllers, there tend to be proprietary closed ecosystems today, and this is really an open Linux-based software implementation of that, where you can build your own image, you can customize it, add your own features to it, and you can really integrate with the hardware in a way that you couldn't manage before. And this is especially important for something like Ironic, for example, where they can do many more things to manage the hardware that they couldn't get into before. So deploying OpenStack on OpenPOWER is a relatively easy task, right? So again, OpenStack is for the most part all Python based, so it's architecture agnostic for the code itself. OpenStack deployments with OpenPOWER, if you just go grab the source off of the OpenStack repos and git.openstack.org, work pretty much out of the box. You can use Nova, Cinder, Glance, Ceilometer, all of those services I've listed up here and more with pretty much no changes, right? You can see them, you can use them, use the same code you're already familiar with on these servers, and in fact, these is already deployed in several places and several clouds around the world today. So it's not you'd be the first one going out and doing it. OpenPOWER supports all of those same industry standard technologies that would run on top that you would expect. We've got KVM, Docker, Kubernetes, LXD, all of the things you'd use for your VM management, containers, bare metal, that we all pull in. It's all part of this industry standard open ecosystem that people can come and contribute to and collaborate on. And then a lot of OpenStack distros have started picking up support for this as well, in addition to the upstream deployment tools. So you've got support in things like Ubuntu OpenStack. You've got support in OpenStack Ansible as of the Newton release. People have done it with like Kola, for example. So I mean, there are all kinds of tools out there. This is all things people are familiar with on the front end. And now as we start going towards the back end, you start doing your hardware, your server deployments, you can really make those modifications all the way up and down the stack that you just hadn't been able to change before. So OpenPOWER is sorry about that. Might come back. So I had to, there we go. All right, so like I mentioned, OpenPOWER is actually active. It's out in the industry. There are 200 member companies as part of this ecosystem today. So for example, we've got Barreli. Barreli is a server that was actually designed as an OpenPOWER and an Open Compute server. It was all put together initially as part of a Rackspace design, as partnership with companies like Avago, IBM, Ingrasys, Mellanox, PMC, Samsung, all collaborated together to create this server. And the entire hardware design, as well as the BIOS, the BMC firmware that I talked about before, the target OS that runs on top of it, is all open source. You can freely download all of this. You could, if you had the right tools and everything, the right context, you could actually manufacture this system yourself based off the designs that are published. So it's really a big shift in the way the server design and the server industry has worked. And this is also being deployed as part of OpenStack clouds as well, right? I know this is something that has been discussed on this stage earlier today. It's something that's happening down at demos at the IBM booth, but as part of its Domain 2.0 effort, AT&T has actually done a proof of concept deployment with OpenPOWER for their geo-distributed Swift deployments. They've got a big focus as part of this on open hardware, open source software, all of those bits and pieces that are really important as we start driving into these open ecosystems like OpenPOWER and Linux and OpenStack. And being able to tie everything together from end to end is a pretty big shift in the way that companies like AT&T have done their deployments in the past. So with that, I know it says questions at the top. I can't take questions up here, but for anyone who wants to get involved that's here in Barcelona this week, we actually have the OpenPOWER Summit Europe going on here in Barcelona as well this week. It's going on through the 26th to the 28th, so starts Wednesday with some work groups and keynotes on Thursday and sessions on Friday. There's no cost. It's actually just around the corner at the Barcelona Princess Hotel. So for those of you who are interested in contributing to open ecosystems like OpenStack and really want to start driving down farther into Stack, start seeing what the open hardware revolution here is all about, you can head on over, or you can go to the link here, get more info, figure out, and if you're something you're really interested in here today. So with that, I think I'm done.